Welcome everyone. Let's dive into this fascinating approach to overcoming objections from labor buyers. It's all about matching the buyer's mindset with a carefully crafted response. And really, it's like a tactical playbook for sales teams.
Absolutely. It's a detailed guide that covers common objections like, we already have a guy and we're not looking right now, emphasizing that our role is to support, not replace existing teams.
Right, exactly. For example, when a buyer says, we already have a guy, the response stresses how even great teams need depth. Like, it's like having a bench in sports, you know?
Yeah. It's interesting because it reframes the objection as an opportunity. If timelines shift, you need reliable backup. It's a neat way to turn a potential negative into a reassurance.
Right. And then you've got objections like, we're not looking right now. Instead of pushing, the method suggests being on standby, showing that you're ready to help if things suddenly change.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there's the common theme of trust. When someone says we have a roster we trust, the response emphasizes seamless integration. It's like saying, hey, we're not disrupting your workflow, we're just enhancing it.
That's right. And what I find compelling is the narrative around bad experiences. When buyers mention having had bad experiences with labor companies, the response flips that by saying, that's why we built this company with local leadership and transparency.
Yes, I like that approach. Exactly. It's almost like owning your history and then using it to build trust. But do you think balancing that narrative might be a bit overcompensating for previous mistakes?
Interesting point. I mean, it might come off as defensive if not properly delivered, but if you have the authenticity behind local leadership and transparent systems, it resonates. You know, it's all about tone. It's like telling a story where you learned from failures and built a better solution.
Right, and then there's the pricing objection. The response is, our crew may cost a little more, but we reduce overstaffing. That saves money in the long run. It draws a clear line between upfront cost and long-term savings.
Exactly. Emphasizing value over price. It's that classic cost versus value discussion. Even if you pay a bit extra now, you benefit from efficiency later. And that's powerful in a buyer's mind.
Yeah, that comparison really makes a difference. Then there's an objection like, we don't work with new vendors. The response is all about following their process immediately. It's reassuring, like, we'll do the paperwork and be right in your established system.
Absolutely, that's a very collaborative stance. It shows flexibility. Plus, it helps overcome the risk aversion inherent in the buyer mindset. And isn't that key in this field?
Yes, right. And about that objection, I don't know your people. The response suggests starting with one, meeting them, and if they don't deliver, you'll cover the cost. It's almost like a trial run.
Yeah, it's a low-risk way for them to sample what you offer. It builds confidence because they know exactly who they're working with. Plus, it fosters a relationship right from the start.
That works well. Then there's the challenge. I'm not the decision maker. This one is less confrontational, simply asking for a referral. It's elegant in its simplicity, keeping the door open for future conversations.
Almost like network mapping. You get introduced to the actual decision maker eventually. And that's critical in sales pipelines.
Yeah, absolutely.
And don't forget the regional or market-based objections like, we don't have shows in that city. The response positions your team as a backup option, ready if anything unpredictable pops up.
Right on. That's smart positioning, by being the safety net. And then there's the too much red tape objection. Here the answer is super appealing since it offloads the paperwork burden. That's a real empathy move.
Exactly. It's about reducing friction. One form and done. Meaning you're there to make life easier, not harder. It kind of rebrands onboarding new vendors as a seamless process rather than a bureaucratic nightmare.
Yeah, that's key. Then there's the "I don't have time right now" objection. The response offers a one-pager and a follow-up in 2 weeks, keeping the conversation alive without being pushy.
Absolutely. It's patient nurturing, almost like a check-in call rather than a hard sell. That's how you maintain relevance even when the buyer is overwhelmed.
Very thoughtful. And what really stands out to me is how the table addresses union labor or freelancer preferences. It shows that even if the buyer has a set structure, like using union labor or only working with freelancers, there's a tailored response that acknowledges that, but also offers additional support.
Precisely. It's all about respect for the buyer's current system. When they say, "We only work with freelancers," the response clarifies that the crew can be freelancers too, but with that extra infrastructure for protection.
True.
It's a win-win. And there's also a section for objections around internal processes, like "we do it all in-house" or "we just rotate crew from our other offices." These responses don't undermine internal efficiency, but offer to serve as a buffer when necessary.
Absolutely. That gentle nudge can be very reassuring. Yes, it positions your services as an extension rather than a replacement. And then look at the "we already have a preferred list" objection. The idea of being the backup on that list shows you're ready on a moment's notice.
Exactly. It's a no-pressure approach. And then there's the one about "send me your info and I'll take a look." It sets up a follow-up schedule so that your offer stays relevant. I mean, it's a neat balance between passive deferral and proactive engagement.
Yay, I like that strategy. And then moving into more on-site concerns, like "I don't like managing new crew on site," the response highlights a single point of contact and thorough briefings. It reduces management stress dramatically.
Yeah, it's all about lowering the operational burden. With a dedicated lead, you can almost compare it to having an on-site concierge who handles all the nitty-gritty details for you.
Definitely, that analogy really clicks. And then there are the objections born from internal issues, like layoffs or financial cuts. "We just laid off internal crew," or "we had to cut labor on this show." The responses pivot to short-term wins and optimize labor, which is a carefully balanced reassurance during tough times.
It's a compassionate pitch that recognizes the financial pressure while offering flexible solutions, keeping the focus on helping rather than selling aggressively.
Absolutely. And the transparency angle, when someone mentions being audited on labor costs, really stands out. Daily actuals and real-time approvals provide that clean paper trail, which is super appealing to a prospect.
Definitely. It builds trust by showing every step of the process. It's like having a clear window instead of opaque policies. Everyone loves clarity.
And lastly, the table even touches on relationship and network-based objections, like "we only use people we've worked with before," or "my client chooses the crew." These responses focus on providing a low-risk opportunity to prove your capability, gradually earning a place in their circle.
Right. It reinforces that you're willing to start small and let your results speak for themselves. Overall, the tool is ideal for sales onboarding, objection handling training, internal outreach alignment, even CRM scripting and
clearly.
call prep.
Yeah, it's like an all-in-one guide for anyone in sales, from new BDMs to operations leads. I really appreciate this comprehensive structure. It makes navigating objections feel less like a chore and more like a strategic conversation.
Indeed, it turns a potentially reactive scenario into a proactive sales strategy. And you know, it sort of redefines the entire engagement process around the labor market.
Exactly, truly enlightening. So to wrap up, this table isn't just a list of responses. It's an entire mindset shift for handling objections with transparency, empathy, and strategic foresight.
Precisely. It's a playbook aimed at encouraging informed conversations, bolstering internal alignment, and building lasting trust with buyers.
Yeah, it's definitely a game changer. Thanks for unpacking all these nuanced points. I feel like we've really drilled down into how each objection can be turned into an opportunity.
Absolutely. It's been a great dive into a practical approach for overcoming objections in stressful sales situations. Until next time, keep those conversations genuine and strategic.